Hi everybody, Tim from Workshop 12 here. We're back at the shop going to be working on the Nemesis R1. For those that don't know what the project is, it's a single-seater car for the road. Should be a fun little car to be able to drive. What we're trying to work on now is figuring out how to get the intercooler mounted, and there's a lot of different things to take into consideration. So I've been trying to figure out how everything's all going to come together, so let's kind of just get right to it and take a look here. So I temporarily put the seat back into the car because one of the things that I need to take into consideration is where the belts are going to come through. Straight in through here, and I think I should be able to mount them with some welded on nuts into the crossbar that's going straight across the back behind the seat there. I think that should give me the right angle that I need. There's not going to be a lot of belts going back, just right onto the connection points there, but I think that is about the best I'm going to get for being able to mount those belts. Now, one of the things that I want to take into consideration when I've got my intercooler propped up here is that there's maybe enough room here for me to be able to put an aluminum sheet down in between to be able to block off some of the heat and the elements to where those connection points are going to land for the seat belts, to try to keep them less exposed to any kind of heat and stuff from the engine bay. So I want to keep, as you can see, enough clearance between there that I can run an aluminum sheet down. Now that aluminum sheet is likely also going to create essentially an air box around the intercooler to direct all the airflow coming in here above the seat down in and onto the intercooler. Now, there's not a lot of space to deal with here, so I'm dealing with trying to get tolerances underneath. Sacrifice we're going to have to make here is that nut or the bolt that goes in to hold the blow-off valve on. You know, we're going to have to remove these bars if you're wanting to change the blow-off valve. Or what I'm doing is I'm creating some connecting points here so that we can actually just pull the intercooler straight out if we ever need to get it out of there. So I've really been struggling and working through how I'm going to get everything to be able to mount up. You know, I'm trying to make sure that there's a straight shot from the bottom of the intercooler outlet to go and clear the intake manifold, you know, with a rubber hose to be able to come back around and down around into the actual intake manifold. Now, as you can see here, I had to shift it, offset it, so that it's not a straight shot back from the intake manifold over onto the intercooler. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is that if you take a look here straight from the back, I'm trying to even out the two sides of the intercooler here for any kind of body work that we've got coming down over the edges of the frame. So I've been trying to center the intercooler as much as humanly possible over the engine, but that means some of these are going to be offset a little bit for piping. Now, that's okay. I'm not too worried about that. I've got enough spacing here to be able to get on my vacuum hose for the blow-off valve. Looks like I'll have clearance here as well for the outlet coming out of the blow-off valve for if I want to just vent it or if I want to run it back into the intake that's coming into the car. So I think in general it's mocked up the way that I want to. As you can see, a creative use of plywood and 2x4s to try to prop up and get everything as even as I can around, because I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to mount this in here, because I can't just do permanent bars or weld things here because all of this stuff needs to be able to remove to be able to get the engine in and out. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to run these angle iron pieces here straight from the mounts back onto the two bars that run up. Now that should give me enough clearance. I've been playing around to be able to pull the dipstick to be able to get oil in and out of the vehicle. So that should give me enough clearance to run a straight shot back, weld them on there, and maybe a little brace just to triangulate everything. I'm thinking that's what's going to work. So I got to experiment with that today. I'm going to have to notch out stuff on the back and weld it on, then tack weld it onto that bar. Probably pull the bar right out for finish welding, and then see how everything fastens in together. That's the goal. The tricky part is keeping everything propped in place while I'm trying to do all of my welding and fabrication. So it'll be interesting. So I'll see if I can get that to work today. That will be kind of today's project that I'm hoping to be able to get done. Get that intercooler standing there freestanding. Then I can figure out how all the piping and everything's going to run to it. Well, let's get started. Alright, we've got our one bracket welded on here on the inside. Once we get the bar off, we'll do the bottom welding there as well. But we got it bolted in here to get it nice where we want it. And then we've got another support piece that will likely be going right about here. So I've marked off some different areas where I'm just going to use the little sanding wheel to clean up the metal so that everything connects properly and gets a good surface for welding. Now, the other side is a little bit different. So I had to create essentially this little angle piece on the other side. So it's going to have the same kind of an idea, but it's got a kind of route around the intercooler on the other side the way that it mounts. So I can clean up that all the flux from the welding there. I'm just waiting for this to cool a little bit and then doing the same on the other side. And we are good to go. So everything's all welded in here. We've got our little cross braces to hold everything. At least my welds are actually starting to get back to where they used to be. Starting to look at the little row of dimes again on my good old flux core welding. Splatter, oh, it's a bitch. So everything's all connected here. You can see it's all suspended in air. Obviously a little wobble because we've got rubber grommets in here, so it wobbles a little bit, but once the intercooler piping is connected on the bottom here, and then also the connection from here to the intake manifold, everything will snug up. I've got clearances here as well. Underneath you can see that the bolt's not touching the bar, so that's got that. And we should be able to pull this intercooler out and make any kind of updates or maintenance to it. So lots of room in here to be able to get a straight shot, likely back to that area coming straight through there for running our intercooler pipe coming from the turbo, and then up into these two inlets here and here. Might be able to use the stock connections with a little bit of modifications to them with an aluminum input coming into those. Again, lots of room for the alternator underneath, and we still have clearance to be able to get the dipstick out and being able to do any kind of oil filler. So that's all working on the, well, I can't even say the driver's side because, well, there is only one side. Everything's connected here at the back. We can see kind of our plane. We can still see that our plane from the top down to the sidebar should still clear the bracketry that we have on the side. This bracket had to get updated. It's a little bit different than the other side. It has to come along the side of the intercooler here and then jut back into the chassis there, and then did the same kind of cross brace up here to hold it on. Again, these are on these main bars here that can all be just disconnected and pulled off the car to be able to drop in and out of the engine. So everything all turned out really well. Actually really impressed. I thought this was going to be a lot wobblier here, but turned out pretty good. Just because the supports are more in the center of the intercooler, so it didn't wobble a whole lot. I was kind of worried on whether or not that was going to be an issue. But we also should have clearance here. As you can see, we've got our throttle cable that should be able to run along the bottom of the intercooler and up into that bracket. If we need to bend it just a slight bit at the bracket here, we can to get ourselves a little bit more clearance. But that all looks like it's gonna work, which is always a good thing. Yeah, so one more thing taken care of on the car. And then trying to figure out what's next. Maybe doing some actual intercooler piping, or starting to do some of the floorboards here to be able to do the pedal mounts and make that work with the seating. But more progress every day, get a little bit more done. Really excited on getting that intercooler done today, and we'll get back to another project as soon as we can.